Not yet.
All right, we should be back
Now
now.
we're live again. Now
And
we're
there
live
should
again.
be a VOD of what we just did, right?
There was a VOD, yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. Now, before we get back into Eve, Higherbrand was asking about my yard. And I feel it's important that I show you a picture of my yard. And then we can talk about whatever. I mean, you can do that now, anyways. But I also forgot to say in my final thought that I think that making changes to Ansiblexes is very good, and I think that they should be more limited. But I think that it would have been more important to make the space more desirable first, so that there was an actual tangible effect that could be seen in
So
general.
the main issue with that is like the ANSIs have so many secondary negatives. It like
I
on a
agree.
day-to-day basis in terms of like the speed of response and the ease of response and the ease of going really far to interfere with other areas of space, that fixing ANSIs fixes or at least alleviates a lot of the other issues of how big these groups have gotten in nullset. And so I would argue that very little changes, because if you make space more desirable, because these groups with their massive amounts of projection would still only leave such a small sliver of other space that most groups wouldn't really even see an opportunity there in the first place. So I think these are kind of necessary in terms of like first step and moving
I think
forward.
a band-aid just needed ripping off, right? And
Yeah. I also think that it gives CCP a lot of interesting feedback on like where, like how this affects the ecosystem, and like what, at least in the current sandbox, the effects of like more limited subcap projection are. And that data is hopefully going to lead to some better balancing changes.
All right, Nada, what was I being a dumbass about earlier?
I think, yeah, like, generally, I think this entire discussion is just kind of pointless when people are trying to argue, oh, what secondary effects will it have, blah, 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 blah. Antiplex was just too strong. You reduced the jump distance between systems by very, very significant amount for absolutely no fucking consequence. I think stuff like the dumb bubble and Antiplex change needs to be reverted because that makes no sense and is not in line with any other mechanics in the game.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Sorry?
The Antiplex change where you can't take it if it's bubbled. That doesn't apply to anything like gates or wormholes. It's very silly.
I don't know. I kind of feel like that one's not a terrible one. Why do you think that's bad?
It's not consistent with the rest of the game is my main thing.
I mean, you're not
I think
wrong that
it's
not
way too
consistent,
strong.
but like,
I think it's way too strong for like just Billy no mates trying to do like fucking day-to-day stuff with little shitty paladin or whatever. He's just trying to do it
it's
from
certainly
1D
really
DD
nice when you're camping a gate and you just bubble it and they can't go through, right?
Yeah,
There's no doubt about that.
It seems way
I
too
think
strong.
I'd rather have kept it to if you're pointed, but not if you're
I
bubbled.
think if you're scrammed, I think even pointed is too light.
Yeah, I
Pointed
think
is at least consistent with world structures.
Yeah, but it's still even not consistent with like wormholes or what's that other one? Gates.
Yeah, but I also think it could be interesting if you added it to where you couldn't jump a Stargate if you were scrammed either. That would be an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, then there's nothing you can do against gate camps.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it'd be stupid.
Yeah, I don't. That's something I don't understand.
That's kind of how it feels.
There's so
with
much
that
uproar.
bubble change,
There's so much uproar about fatigue. Everybody's on Reddit. All the goon posters are like, "Oh, fatigue! It'll ruin the game. It ruins the game for line members. Line member activities will be unplayable." But like, surely the change they've already implemented of allowing bubbles to stop you from taking antis is far more impactful. Because if you're in a fucking fleet, you can just if there's a camp on an ansi, if you're coming through in a fleet, you just force the camp off. You can clear the bubbles. If you're Joe line member doing his daily shit, you jump through the ansi, you either have to scout it and scout every ansi you go through, or you jump through, it's bubbled, and then you just die with no recourse. Like, surely it's far more impactful, the bubble change that's already been implemented.
Well, partly because of the fatigue change, they can just have 30 or 40 people in their standing fleet just roaming around clearing camps all the time, right? Like, and they'll go halfway across the map for content. So I think the ANSI change or the fatigue change will make that bubble impact more significant, if that makes sense. Because right now what happens is you set up a camp on an ANSI, and the standing fleet will come run you off in 5-10 minutes in most cases, right? Because they want the content, etc., and there's no cost for their movement from one side of the region to the other.
I just think that bubble change was just. I think it gave in too much to just fucking idiots who wanted like cheap, easy kills versus actually addressing the actual issue of antiplexes. And it was just infuriating for people to use them on like a day-to-day basis as like Joe line member, while not actually dealing with the issue of FRT teleporting from Fortac H to Toady front in a few jumps.
One of the changes I kind of wanted, and I still think I do want, if they're looking at adding ANSI fatigue, is it kind of is weird that capitals take ANSIs. I don't see any reason for that to be a thing.
Don't you have to do weird stuff to take them? Or
I mean,
no?
if you're triple plated, you have to take a plate off, but
Yeah,
no, not
that's
really.
something enough.
It's
Yeah,
cheaper in liquid ozone in most regions than it is in fuel to take an ANSI. And
Well,
then
the
you
problem
draw-
is, like, usually you empty out an ANSI running more than like 10 caps through it, right? So it becomes a fueling nightmare, like where the logistics is actually trying to pull it off. Because usually when you run like more than 3 or 4 caps, usually you've emptied out the like day-to-day fuel of that thing in
like
a pretty short order.
the avalanche existing now makes that kind of a non-issue as well.
It definitely does not
Yeah.
make it a non-issue. It like mitigates it, but it doesn't make it a non-issue by any means. I still see, people take a couple caps through a jump bridge and all of a sudden it's empty, right?
Well, I mean, if we know in advance, as long as it's not Goon's entire Dread fleet, it's not a problem for us.
I mean, like Goons messaged me and they were like, "Hey, we're taking this ANSI with like 100."
Yeah, but you just said no in advance, right? Which is a pretty massive difference than, day-to-day traffic.
Yeah, true. Gotta run. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
I do wish though they would fucking buff or improve the Lente and Mimitar T2 carriers, because they're like just fucking garbage compared to the other two, since it's only armor and shield legs to get the 5% bonus and everything else like 3%. So like, why would you ever bring the Thanatos one over the Archon one?
If you're a filthy role player only.
Yeah, but I don't think role players are going to be making much use of T2 dreads or T2
No.
carriers.
That does kind of raise the question of like, where's
I thought the,
niche that this is gonna fill? You know,
I thought the guy also got a 5% armor bonus. Does it not?
It does, but why would you use that? Because right, its job is to sit there and be tanky and not die as Link shit.
Oh,
like,
because it's less tanky?
yeah, it's less. It'll be
Yeah,
less
yeah.
tanky than the armor, the one that gets the resist bonus. Like it's like why a lot of times you don't even bring EOSs versus fucking what do you call that? Damnation.
EOSs do have a resist bonus though.
Yeah, but they're not as tanky as Damnation, so they're just brought less. Even though I think they have a better.
Yeah,
Link.
for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right, effectively, that if people are going to use, much like triage use, right? Like people use Minakawas and they use Apostles. And in this case, it'll be the exact same, where people will use Salvations and whatever the fuck the Chimera one is.
I think two of those are kind of dead on arrival. A lot of the bonuses are just kind of useless.
Well, the support fighter bonus thing is the one that like really like I made my Reddit. Who the fuck gives a shit about your Scarab bonuses, right? Like,
Yeah.
Jesus, guys, like, is anybody like got a brain here? Like, it's like the Galente and Mimitar ones get like Siren and Drami bonus. The other ones get like Cenobite and Scarab. Like the Cenobite at least can be useful to a degree, but
Yeah.
like the Scarab is like, what the fuck are we doing? Especially because these fighters are dog shit normally anyways, and it's like, oh, we're not gonna even let them keep their light fighter bonus. Like, you take them down to 2 light fighter tubes, and it's like, yeah, you're not even gonna get to keep your bonus stuff. Like, just fuck you. Like,
maybe they really just don't know what to do with carriers in general. Like that is possible.
I think that is quite likely, yeah.
I think they're just generally scared of like, what is at this point now just a fucking fictional account of what it was like in like 2018, like 2017, like in the second half of 2017, because it wasn't fucking carriers online. You saw them a few times, but like they weren't every fucking fight.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
the
if you
Anormal
remember in
gets
the
beat low.
you probably don't remember, but in the Delve War, they became super important, where you could just set them, Skynetting a gate and like either be fucking 500 of them on the Keepstar, and there was no way to really get to them, right?
Yeah, but that's an issue that just needs nerfed itself, right? Like
Yeah.
you shouldn't be able to put a carrier shouldn't have the ability to project their fighters onto another citadel from a citadel or any
Yeah.
structure for that matter.
Well, I mean, they have to be able to do that. Otherwise,
No.
what are you going to use carriers for?
Fighting battleships and shit. Like we've used them before. Like you should be able to use them to siege citadels and like have them out of a citadel outside the range of a citadel's weapons. But you shouldn't be able to put it on another citadel. Like you should be able to put them in space and siege another citadel, or put them in space and siege again, right? But you shouldn't be able to do that from the safety of the citadel because that's just fucking stupid.
So, would you support them making it so that you can't drop fighters from tether?
I think that doesn't really matter, right? I think you just shouldn't. I don't think they should have the lock range to.
I just think you just make the integrated sensor array be like maximum like 800 kilometers or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, is Skynetting really that big of a deal these days?
Yeah, it's just stupid.
Unfortunately, it's
it's
just a
stupid.
mechanic that just doesn't have any positives that I'm thinking about.
Also, it's hindering like making the carriers good enough again, because if carriers suddenly like were good at killing battleships and they were good at like all the things that they got nerfed for because of Skynetting, but they kept Skynetting, we just go straight back to, oh yeah, you can just make a gate impossible to get through by bubbling it up and having everything locked down. And
well, I mean, to be fair, they're good at killing battleships. It's everything below battleships. They're
or even being able to hit retributions that we were trying to get through at the time. I think the community
I don't think there's a healthy state of the game where like carriers can hit fucking retributions that aren't even worth the shit.
Yeah, there. I think the community also has a lot of stuff that they would like to see done to carriers to make them like better, that aren't like these big hypotheticals like we have no idea what we want, but also if we ask for these things like a rework to how carriers are defanged and stuff, then that comes with significant cost for CCP to actually change. Like they need to get the engineers to sit down and program, and it's so much easier for us to lobby for changes that include none of that and only just like tweaking numbers in a database.
I think the way to fix carriers is probably give the fighters a massive ECM bonus versus ECM when the ISNA is on. Then also give them like a marginal tracking bonus so they can like hit like fucking maybe fly like half to like afterburning battle cruisers and then full with micro warp driving battle cruisers. Like that's probably a healthy state for them. But of Griffin being able to shut down a super is like the fucking dumbest shit in the game.
Yeah, like the problem is basically carriers need to be able to be like almost a Hodred to allow you to use them in a way, right? With like less projection in other ways, because otherwise they just don't have a role in the escalation chain for the most part.
Yeah, like the only role they have at the moment is you use them when you need a doctrine that can tank what battleships can't tank.
Yeah.
So when you say like a Hodred, would you suggest reducing the lock range to make them like more viable against subcaps, but just closer to those subcaps instead of from very, very far away?
Kind of what they're trying to do with the command carriers, but like actually able to like do things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to put the command carriers like right in the middle of fleets, like a battleship fleet with just a carrier.
Yeah, and like I think their idea with the command carriers is fine. It's just that the execution is dog shit so far. So.
Well, they haven't been released yet. It's the thing. So like we've got work in progress.
Well, we've got the stats, so like that's all we really need.
I mean,
stats
sure,
do
but they
say
are work in progress. And they could be changed just as easily as they were posted, you know?
I don't see any reason these command carriers don't get like 6 or 7 high slots, if not 8. Like,
Yeah, they get 5.
yeah. But if you're using 3 of them for fucking links, and you're putting a ship
Right.
that's 10 billion ISK on the field, like, hey guys, it'd be nice if I could have like an FSU or
Anything
2,
else?
or Smart Bomb or 2, a Nude or 2. Like, just give me some fucking shit to do, right?
I mean, you only use one for links because they only have one better link than the others. Other link
Say what,
ships.
sir?
Well, you
You only
would
use
put
one.
2 shield links or 2 armor links on.
Oh, wait, do they not have the ability to fit 3 links
No,
naturally?
they can fit 3.
No,
yeah.
they can fit 3 links, right? But they're only better for armor and shield. They're not better for info and skirmish.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
that speaks to the amount of carriers you bring primarily. Like
Speaks to
you'll bring
well,
a
so far, right?
carrier
I assume
for-
they will have to like do the skirmish and info 5% too, right? Because
Yeah,
like
but at
the
the
funny
moment
thing is, when I heard
they're
this,
3%.
the thing I was most excited about was the 5% info, so we could have a little bit of fucking lock range protection.
Yeah, no, at the moment it's just armor and shield.
Yeah,
used to
I
say they were
also
gonna be
don't
mobile.
like why even bother giving us a 1% bonus link of any kind? Like, why would anyone take a Tech 2 carrier, put it on grid, and be like, okay, we're going to use the off links for this one?
Yeah, the only time you're going to use that is dread balls. You'll throw them on a dreads and supers.
No, I could absolutely see you using a shield or armor one, just like you do a fax, right? Like the price is actually probably going to be similar. You know, you drop a minnow and a super chimera. What the fuck is the chimera called? Like
A Simmerge.
yeah, so you drop a minnow and a submerge, and like that's a pretty strong backbone to your shield fleet, right? Like that seems reasonable.
Yeah,
like
exactly. But not
you've
for
not
10
extended
billion
your
ISK.
No, I mean a minnow is like 7, like so it's not
Yeah,
crazy.
but is it really that much stronger than just having?
I mean, adding 10 or 15k EHP to everybody's ship can be pretty substantial. I don't know if it's that much, but like
No, it's so much less. Like
it's fucking marginal.
yeah,
it's
'cause
like
2%, right?
400.
The percent bonuses on the hulls are pretty negligible. Experience.
Okay, this is actually a really easy piece of math. Give me 1 second, I'll find out.
Well, so basically what it looks like, though, is that they're just scared of making something too strong that they have to go back and iterate on it later on. They just want to put it in a position where it's not going to be too broken.
Yeah, like
I
if this
think
is like
they
super
should
broken,
reverse
it would
course
just
on
be an
that.
I win more button for snuff. I'm saying that all the time. Who's gonna fucking
No,
go?
he's saying true, but I don't think trying to balance around stuff is a good idea because
But that's kind of the problem you have now a lot of time, though, right? Because like you introduce stuff like that. Oh, like this thing gives you like 25% more EHP, but you need to have dread superiority to field it. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that would pretty much be like, I don't think it would be an I win button for Snuff, though. I think you guys are pretty bad usually.
Well, it's not an I win button, but it just makes it that much harder to contest them, right? That was what he's saying.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. I think that if there's a reason to do something, people will do it. I think that that's the simple psychology behind the game, and I think that that is what does not get considered in any mention of Ansible changes, since someone in the chat is asking about it. Because, like, there are a lot of people that are talking about how it's going to make the small groups be able to break into the space, but I don't think it's going to make them want to do that, and it's not going to stop them from getting smashed on a Citadel timer. I can't see what it does other than make it so that nullsec finds it more difficult to participate in fights that aren't next door.
So what it will do is it will force groups to minimize their overall, what would you say, like kind of we're talking about floodplains, like they'll have to be tighter is what it will do.
Why?
Which will, because the harassment at the edges will be harder and harder and harder to deal with because you can't just have standing fleet going around dealing with it anymore.
But why can't you? So, like, if
Because they have fatigue.
You'll get fatigue, and then they.
No, but
But
like,
like,
if you look at the areas of space, like I look at Winter Coalition space as an example for this, because all of the alliances live in different regions, and all of the alliances have their own standing fleets. So like,
Yes.
they're not gonna be impacted by this Anseblex change.
Yes,
they're
they
still
will.
gonna have 100 dudes. Well, okay, sure.
I think
a
that
little bit,
I think the
depending
one
on how the
big
numbers
thing,
shake out.
the one big thing that we don't know that makes this discussion hard to have now and maybe easy in September is the entire proposal includes a rider of if the ANSI is close to your capital, it shouldn't be that bad to use. So like.
Right.
And there's so the sliding scale there could be like CCP says like, oh, if the ANSI is within 10 light years of your capital, you just don't get any fatigue, or you get like enough fatigue to slow you down by a single
minutes.
minute. And if you like kind of in like a how you would do like blops jumping and stuff, where if you race to a place, you clear out a camp, and then you wait 5 minutes before you head home, and your fatigue is gone. Versus if you do this 3 times in a day, then you need to wait half an hour.
Yes, the original concept was, it was a radius of your capital did not give you fatigue. I think the important point there is a radius, a number to be defined by CCP, right? I think that number is the thing that will be interesting to see how it plays out.
That is like either make or break for the changes, because even though everyone who's excited about these changes is very vocally excited about them, there is a really good chance that it's not going to go far enough to actually satisfy anybody. And I think that's what's going to end up happening.
So the thing is, there's 2 different metrics you could use, right? First of all, you've got light years, which is what I think they will use, or gate jump distance, which is actually slightly more lore accurate, but let's just ignore that. And I think they've got a range of probably between 5 and 12 light years if you look at existing jump ranges, right? That's where I think they'll land, somewhere in that range.
I mean, I suppose. But one like trend that I'm noticing is that people are saying the things like, if it doesn't work, and it's a great first step, but like, there is no metric to look at after this change is implemented to say, okay, this is working. So like, what I feel like is actually going to happen is that all of the things that anybody expects these Anseblex changes to do are just not going to happen, and then it's going to result in more complaints, and they're going to be cited as FC just didn't go far enough. And I don't think we need a hard metric either. And looking at the map is fine, but I don't think that these Anseblex changes are going to change how the map looks. I just don't.
I think you can look at stuff like the amount of like small fights that now happens in those fringe systems, right? Because if you have it like the way Delve used to be in for goons, right, where you have different corps all living in different areas across the place, right? You could go into goons and fight AMOC because you knew there'd be like there would be a little response from like the rest of the alliance, because they would get fatigue going down there, the south of Delve. And like now, if you split up those groups, you could have a lot more skirmishes and stuff, because you have like smaller groups living across the space.
Also predict
smaller subgroups, subgroups of that bigger group.
I also suspect there might be an increase in kind of like whaling losses, or what counts for whaling nowadays, because response times on fringes are going to be that much tighter, right?
Yeah, like we had fucking insane shit. We were trying to kill Init, Roracle, and Iridia, and pretty much by the time we tackled it and it was near out of panic, Init were there with a full fleet. And then we went back like 20 minutes later, did the same thing again. They had already went back to staging their fucking home system, and they were still able to just get down there again before it got out of panic. Like that's fucking stupid, right? That thing should have a punishment to it.
I think that's the sort of thing you might see more of it dying, right? Or they're not out to kill because they've realised they're too far away. Someone was just talking about geography, like light years and drones compared to Stargates, and I think that's okay, because I think geography is important, right?
Lightyear's just gonna be a lot more consistent than fucking Gates because I don't know, you do it like Gates. You just live right next to a really long gate.
I mean, it's going to be consistent for everybody except whoever ends up owning the drone lands at the end. Because, like, that space is dense.
Yeah, drones is the weird one because it's multiple overlapping regions.
Yeah,
So
they should
drones
just not let.
normal light years is a bit weird, but
They should just ban you from having Anzaplex and drones because there's no NPC space.
How are you just going to do that? You can't just ban things from nullsec space because of any reason that you want. That's not fair. Drones should be fine the way it is. But I really do, we didn't talk about Casimir's point enough, I don't think, about the income portion of owning space. Because
I just want to reply to one of the comments in chat quickly. Someone said standing should not be prevented from finding and chasing content. I actually agree, which is the whole reason why the proposal ended up with there is a zone of whatever size around your capital that does not generate fatigue, because actually the original desire from everybody was antis generate fatigue 100% of the time, and that is the middle ground. Also, if people are slightly further than that, you can still take regular gates, right? And you can get a little bit of fatigue because you're still chasing stuff. So,
and the thing is that's one of the big things that people want to solve, though, is the standing fleet problem. You can have 50 Atrons on you in a moment's notice. But that, again, if there's an area where you don't get fatigue, that is also not solved.
Say that bit again, sorry?
So if there is an area of space close to your capital where you don't get fatigue, the problem of just being able to spawn 50 Atrons on your enemies, or 50 whatever you want to, is not solved.
But is that a problem?
That is a problem that people have. People have a lot of problems with Ansible gates, and they talk about them as if they're all the same problems. So you find that the opponents of Ansible gates will argue any argument against them, and anybody for them will argue any argument for them, acting like they're the same arguments. But there's too many facets of the Ansible gate to just apply a blanket nerf like fatigue and expect it to be fantastic.
This was the thing, right? This was the conversation, I think, right at the beginning, right, when I reframed what the original point of the conversation was, which was, yeah, if you're a small gang and you're roaming near a big alliance's capital, you should not have an advantage there, right? You shouldn't. In fact, it's completely opposite. You're super disadvantaged. You're in the middle of somebody's kind of core space, and their infrastructure should be important and allow them to chase you around pretty effectively.
Correct, but that's where people want an advantage. They want to be able to interdict
right?
fleets leaving that area of space and going somewhere else. They want to prevent them from reaching that someplace else and prevent them from engaging in the content.
But it is predictable, right? It's a harassing fleet. So if we say like it's 5 light years, just arbitrary for now, right? A harassing fleet can work out what that distance is, right? And they can play around the fringe of those 5 years and try and create an unforced error where a group end up generating fatigue. And that's just a counterplay at that point, right?
I mean, I guess. And so Henry in the chat says that he thinks it's reasonable to prevent people from engaging in content so far out of their staging system. There is no preventing people from engaging in content. The thing is that any attempt to do so will just be circumvented by another method of travel because there are so many of them.
Oh, did you just drop Redline?
I don't think so. Did I?
I think you dropped out right at the end there, but maybe I missed it.
Oh, no, I think I said everything I needed to. It just didn't sound like I was finished. And I guess fatigue can be considered friction, if we want to call it that. And I don't think it means that the response is smaller. It just means the response is slower, is the thing. Because that's all that fatigue is going to do, is just make things slower. It's not going to stop people from wanting to do things.
think just looking at Henry's point though, I think like you also have more downtime around strat ops where people are discouraged from accumulating fatigue. I think yes, but also no, right? Because there are still ships you can travel around with that minimize fatigue if you're accumulating fatigue, right? And you can still burn around pretty effectively in a shuttle, even without taking jump bridges, right? So I don't think. Yes, it creates some friction if you're ratting 3 regions from your capital, depending on how CCP implement everything.
So, do you remember the Battle of 9-Tac-4? Were you there?
Can't remember.
All right. Well, anyways, I wanted to be there, but I couldn't be there because I had jump fatigue. I was setting on a Titan bridge. They were like, take the Titan bridge, take the Titan bridge. And I was like, I can't. This was like 2 months into the game. It was some bullshit. That's what mechanics like that do, is they make people experience bullshit moments where they miss out on the largest fight the game has ever seen at the time because they have jump fatigue.
So let me ask you let me give you a counter question to that one, right? So if you are under attack as an alliance and your kind of adversary sets up in such a way to force you to have to defend 2 things a couple of hours apart from each other or surprise you so they know people are going to have fatigue, that's a valid play, right? It gives more options at that point for those games.
I mean, it is. Sure. That's a valid strategy. And I would hope that people would take advantage of it. But
Redline, I have a question.
What's up?
Since you're of the opinion that the groups not living in nullsec shouldn't have opinions on the balance of nullsec, doesn't that mean that you shouldn't have any opinions on the game? Because you don't log it.
First off, that is not what I said. And second off, it is too nice to log in currently. So that's the problem. What I said was that, well, I guess my argument was actually interrupted. So I'll go back to saying that. What I said was that the people largely that are complaining about Ansiblexes and want fatigue are the people in lowsec that are wanting people in nullsec to not participate in the fight. But the people in nullsec want changes to nullsec that will create more fights that are closer to them. So, like, we actually want...
but why should
these people to come and try to invade my space?
Yeah, but you choose to live as far away from them as possible. Yet you also at the same time want easy access to fights. Yet your enemies can't have that same access to your crabbing space.
Who are they going to fight, Redline? Who are they going to fight?
Why would they, like, they can't use your ANSIs.
Correct.
Why would ANSIs help you get better content?
I am trying to find out why you can't have fights with nullsec being involved, with nullsec groups being involved.
Because
I understand
because they have so many fucking people.
I understand the people is a big deal. There's a lot of people there. I get it.
No, that's the entire deal.
Could you not just bring more people yourself?
There doesn't exist enough people in the rest of the game, Redline.
Okay, look, Redline, okay, you don't understand the scale, okay? You don't understand the scale, bro, okay? The fucking Imperium is 100k. The Imperium Coalition is 100k characters, okay?
Baza,
the entirety of stuff.
I know full well how big the Imperium is.
Okay, great. The entirety of stuff, Big Ab, Sedition, Minmatar Fleet, Shadow Cartel, all of lowsec is 5k. Okay.
Plus every single other active FAC War pilot wouldn't even be able to form in an off TZ of one of the blocks.
To be honest,
that's how big the issue
is. That's fair.
Right? To be honest, so, I actually predicate that this change, when they release it, will probably end in larger fights than people realize, especially in lowsec. But let me just explain why I think that will happen, right? So, Bazza, if you thought you could get a drop on something and you knew it was going to be 20 minutes, right? You think you can get the drop on and extract before one of these groups could get there under the new fatigue mechanics? There is a chance for people to screw those timings up. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just
from a low sec group perspective, I suspect there'll be more plays because they know people can't get there but there will also be a risk there for plays to be miscalculated, which will be a lot more bloody because those plays just wouldn't have happened pre this sort of change.
Yeah. Yes. I do think that there's definitely going to be, there's room now for stuff like fucking with response fleets now again. Like, one of the big things that was really frustrating about the Blops response fleet era was that Blops are really weak to a couple of comps. Like, they have limited projection, they're slow, they have like relatively bad on-grid mobility. So you could take advantage of those to like kind of fuck with one of the like response fleets, but the issue is they would just form FNIs and be there in like less time than it took for their Sino to get on grid initially. So there might be actual plays to like fuck with response fleets now that there's fatigue.
How? Like, so if the fatigue is based on where you are in terms of distance from your capital, and
It's
your
because
capital
they've
is in
gained
the center
fatigue.
of your
They've-
space.
Yeah, they've gotten fatigue from going elsewhere in their space.
Gotcha. So, like, how are you going
Like,
to
they
get
go out-
to... Hold on, let me finish, because what you're saying is that this is going to create the same scenario where, like, you can't navigate their space as quickly as they can.
Well, no, with high
and now
effort,
they
you can
won't be
get
able
there.
to either.
That's how
So,
we
like,
fuck
the
with
question
whaling.
becomes...
Like, how do you think whaling happens right now?
If you're wanting to have someone locked down in an area, like in one location, and then they can't get to the other parts of space to defend that part of space, well, you can't get to that part of space to attack it either.
No, we
so
can't.
unless you're bringing
How
more
do
friends,
Redline, listen to what I'm saying, please.
I'm trying.
We're
I'm
talking
trying
about
so hard.
high effort drops on response fleets.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
Those happen right now. Those have happened in the past. None of the groups that do them have access to the ANSIs in the area. How do you think they happen? It's with like meticulous planning and effort and pre-setup.
Okay.
That's how they get access. Like, why would removing ANSIs like
They
not
also don't
make
have
that
to
viable?
be anywhere else. Like, if I'm gonna do a drop on
Yeah.
some high effort drop that's Sven's talking
I'm
about,
not going to
set up
have
and I do
fatigue
this,
when I go there.
I don't need to worry. Oh shit, I've got a strat up in 2 hours that I have to fuck off to. Those groups are different
Yeah.
people that are not doing the strat ops, like fucking
Like
vegetables and keep styles or whatever.
if goons come back from a massive strat up and then put their crabbing umbrella up, and then I go drop on their crabbing umbrella, and all their members have a bunch of fatigue, so they can't get there as fast in like a heavier doctrine that isn't like Rorquals or Blops or whatever the fuck they're dropping. Like,
So,
means
like,
I can
I
fuck
get
with
what
their
you're
standing
saying.
umbrella.
I get what you're saying.
It'll mean that
but
they'll bring the same doctrine with less people because the people who can't get there are fatigued, so they'll have less people, or they'll bring the same number of people in a less powerful doctrine. They'll say, fuck it, all our fleet's fatigued, we're going to go in harpies. And either way, the fight is more engageable. The fight is actually more manageable. And this is why I've said on Reddit a bunch of times that Ansiblex, people say Ansiblex helps you get to content. Ansiblex is the biggest content denial in the game because of the amount of fights that don't happen because Ansiblex exists. The number of fights on the Goring deployment where we fucking 100, not even 100 dudes, it's like 50 dudes on the Goring deployment, and we're looking at like 150, 200 v 200 fight, whatever. And we see fucking 600 Goon Feroxes undock 6 regions away, and it's like, well, fuck it, everybody just log off. Like, there's no point, you know? Like, it just completely kills any chance of content when you know that the Goon Ferox is going to be there in 5 minutes.
Yeah, if there's zero downside to traveling somewhere, they'll come and show up. If there's a bit of a downside,
still going to be there. This isn't going to stop the umbrella. They're just going to be there in
but it's
7
gonna make
minutes instead
like
of 5.
Yeah, and then they're a bunch of Blops are dead. It's not 7 minutes instead of 5. It's like
You can also, but you've also got it will change how those drops work, right? So if you go right, we've got, I don't know, a wormhole chain with eyes on a Rorqual in, I don't know, Innsmother and a Rorqual in, as I say, Deterid and Phaethobolus, right? Why not? You can drop a small number in Phaethobolus. The response fleet goes there. They're all fatigued, and then you drop on your actual target, and you know you can't get the response. The response is not going to come in properly because they're too fatigued to come in at that point, right? So there's lots of plays with those timers that can be made that I actually think are quite interesting.
Yep, that can't just be overridden by because
because
200
they can just go straight back home, and then they just go straight there again.
Not with, you could probably grab some like racking dreads and stuff
Okay.
that way, but not things like
So I
raw.
guess-
Like I said earlier,
I guess
we
we're talking
caught
about a
a
couple
rook
different things, and
in-
this is what let me just say this because this
We're
is
talking
what
about the
makes it
speed
so.
of this
Hold, let me
it's
let me
all
just
the speed
let
of
me just talk.
protection.
Let me just talk without you interrupting me for like once, because we're talking about again a lot of
Take it
different
stuff.
things that are, god damn it, that are all being presented as the same argument. Like you're saying that you're talking about a big organized response. Baz is talking about 200 harpies. You also talked about blops. Like all of these different kinds of responses have varying levels of how they get to you and how frequently they can do that. So are we talking about 200 harpies? Are we talking about a super cap umbrella?
We're talking about how
Are we
fast
talking about
people
50
move around in
Feroxes?
space
Because
with
look,
Ansiblexes.
let me tell you,
In all
okay,
ships, Redline.
awesome. So then we're talking
Like
about
maybe if you played the game,
subcaps.
you'd understand that like when you whale people, like
I have
sure
killed
the velocity
more
response rate is
ISK
there.
through whaling than you will ever kill in your life.
Says the man who's probably killed like a quarter
Alright,
of the fish that I've killed.
On that
All
note,
of
I'm
my
gonna go to
kills
bed.
are
I
from-
gotta
most of my
go.
kills
So
are from
I'll see you
whaling.
guys.
No, Bazza, don't
Have
go
fun.
because
Have a
you're
good one. No,
you're
bro,
super
it's 12 past 12. I
triumphant
gotta go
about
to
the
bed. I
argument.
gotta go to bed. I gotta
No,
go
just-
to bed. I
just
have to go to
answer
bed.
me.
Redline,
answer
I
me
have
the
a
question.
job, Redline, unlike you.
I do
Okay?
too. What do you mean? Don't miss your bus, bro. God.
No, I won't.
Well,
Shut
that's
the,
busy
fuck you,
touching
buddy.
grass.
Fuck you, buddy.
Good
I'm not
job.
missing my
Look,
fucking
it's
bus. I catch
not
the
an
train.
insane
Fuck
take.
off. Right.
What I'm
See you later.
I'm saying, see you, Bazza. Thanks for coming. So what am I wrong about? Honestly.
You keep asking what it's gonna fix, and we're telling you what it's gonna fix and what it's gonna change, and you're like, yeah, but that's not actually what it's gonna change.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying
keep
to figure out
talking
what is
past.
going to change because you're telling me
Fleets
the
move
problem.
around space
You're
slower.
telling me the problem.
Red line.
Okay,
Yeah,
fleets
yeah.
move
No,
around
hear me
space
out. Hear me
slower. Okay, cool. So
People-
we're talking about
There are
fleet
downsides
response,
from going
not
from
a super
A to
cap
B
umbrella, right?
very fast. Redline, right? Real simple terms for you. I'll
So
speak
we're
real
talking
slow.
about a response
Just for
fleet
you.
of subcaps,
We're talking
not a
about-
super cap umbrella, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So there's
perfect.
this thing called a comp that
You
a
don't
super
have to
cap
be like
response
this,
umbrella
Sven. Listen,
can't deal with,
I played
right?
Sven. Shut
Stuff
the fuck
like
up for a
100 men
second,
Loki,
because I played
or
this
like
game at a
10 men
level that you
bombers,
can
like,
never
you
fucking
can't-
understand.
You
I
can't.
know more about
Yeah, but
it
then
than
why do you
you
keep asking these
imagine.
questions like you don't know what you're talking about?
No.
I've
I'm
seen you
asking
fly,
questions
you've done
because I'm
nothing.
trying to make sure that things are clear, okay? I'm not asking because I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about
Yeah, it's
four
perfectly
different
clear.
things
You're just not
as they're
understanding
one
what
thing.
I'm saying. You're just not understanding what I'm saying.
I do understand what you're saying. So we're
Then why do you
talking
keep
about
asking the same
response
question?
fleets. So I agree with you
Yes.
that
No, fleets in
fatigue on
general, all of them
Ansiblexes
moving around
are going to
aerospace.
are going to make it so that these big fleets cannot get to you as quickly. But
Yes.
then the super cap umbrella is just going to come kill you. And then that
No, they're
drops
already on
in.
grid. The whole point is that you can now maybe
Why are
fucking
they on grid?
kill the. Because that's what the default response. The default response is using stuff with jump drives.
But I thought you said
You
that
would
it
know
was a
this if you whaled.
subcap fleet.
Yeah, the point is that you can kill the initial wave of response in a comp that is weak to subcaps, but can kill like a bunch of blops or rorquals without having the counter to that instantly get there in a secondary ping.
But it does.
That's the whole point
Because
of
it's
what
the
we're
super
saying.
cap umbrella. That's the response. It
No,
gets right
Redline,
there.
I'm saying there's comps that a bunch of rorks, by the way, they don't use super caps. You would know this if you whaled. They use mostly like goons use rorks right now as their main like whaling response fleet. Rorks are
Right.
uniquely bad at killing certain comps.
Uh-huh.
So
enforce them to
if
change
you bring
comps.
no,
No.
they're
Okay.
good at killing the usual whaling fleets, right? But if you
Sure.
bait out the rorks and then bring something that the rorks can't kill, instead of having FNIs just show up and kill whatever is killing the rorks, now that FNI fleet is going to be smaller, or it's going to be in a different comp that gets there faster, because they can't just slam 5 ANSIs to get there, because the rorks jump there immediately without considering like how many ANSIs they have to take to get there. And now you can kill like a couple of the response fleet without having a bunch of FNIs show up. The whole issue is that like even if the initial response is weak, they can just ping for more numbers and show up with like an actual fleet in like minuscule amounts of time.
But you
That's what I'm saying.
understand that even with these changes, it is likely that it will still be a minuscule amount of time
It's
for them to do this same action,
much
right?
no, because it's not. Like I've looked
How do you
at the
know?
numbers.
What are the
Yes,
numbers?
I have spies and I know how long it takes to gate to a certain system versus take ANSYs to get there.
No.
There's systems
What are
that
the
take like
numbers on the
3
fatigue
jumps
for
to get.
Ansible skates? Because you don't
What's
know
up?
how far away from a capital you don't get fatigue. You don't know how much fatigue there is
No, I'm saying
when you're away from the
yeah, but
capital. Because it sounds like the
that's why I
idea is to
prefaced
have
all of
none
this. That's why I
if you're
prefaced all
close.
of this. That's why I prefaced all of this with the fact that they just went on an op,
Okay.
and now you're baiting them out, and they have fatigue.
Okay.
Even if
Gotcha.
so, like as soon as they leave that range even a little bit, they won't be able to take another gate like an ANSI for like half an hour. The big thing though that I think this will do is if you fight standing fleets, you're fighting more local standing fleets. Like let's say for example, after this change, like Karma fleet stages a couple jumps away from goons or whatever, because to get to their routing space, they don't want to take a bunch of ANSIs and burn fatigue for that. Now you're just fighting Karma fleet response and like their like standing fleet instead of fighting all of the goons. Or if you're fighting like Sigma grind set, now you're fighting just Sigma instead of Sigma plus goons. Does that make
I mean,
sense?
I see what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. And
But, like
I
if
want
you're
to move
whaling
on a
those
little bit from
tertiary
it.
groups, basically makes it so that you can't just have the main group respond to all the threats to the secondary groups as well, with 0 downsides. They could if it's important,
Sure.
and that'll still happen, right? But it's
Yeah, so
not
if it's
just
like, if you
completely
drop
free.
like 50 dreads on something, that's going to get enough attention that people close by should
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
but
come.
like
And
you're not gonna
here's where I think
burn
our
the
argument
like.
differs. Hold on. Here's where we really got to work on talking at the same time because it's killing me, I swear to God.
I'm talking at the same
But
time.
here's where my argument differs from yours, I think, is that I don't think that there is going to be enough fatigue in the local area of space that it's going to prevent the response fleets from getting there in time. And you are saying that what you are hoping this prevents is the secondary response fleets coming from other regions of space.
Yeah, because the primary ones are already using jump drives, which already give you fatigue to a certain degree.
Right. And I
There's
have
it.
to say, though, that so the secondary response fleet comes from another region of space.
One of the examples.
But there is a
it's one of the-
secondary response fleet from
it's
the people who live there, right? The
well, no. So like,
FNIs?
there's 2 things, right? One is in situations where you're like whaling on like the orbiter groups of the big blocks, where the big block group will show up to reinforce the response fleet, like the initial one. The other is for more high effort stuff, where if you time it right and a bunch of people have a bunch of fatigue, you can whale the main group and not have that secondary fleet coming because they all have fatigue.
So, in this
It
scenario,
basically just
I
the
just wanna
overall
paint
argument. Look,
a
look,
picture.
look, look. It doesn't. The specifics of this aren't super important. The overall picture is that you can't travel around your space as freely and as quickly as you could before, and that has a bunch of positive secondary effects to the size of fights and the
But you
engageability of these
can.
block.
That's the thing, is that they're designing these changes allegedly so that you can fly around your space with relatively
Yeah,
low
but
fatigue,
your
but you
space
can't
is a
fly
lot
around other
smaller.
people's space.
No, no. I'm talking about
Yes.
aggressor groups coming in. They don't have
Okay.
fucking access to these ANSIs. You
Sure,
monkey.
you're right. They don't.
Like,
But what you're saying is that it's going to make it harder for the null set groups to travel in their space. It is not. It is going to make it harder for the null set groups to travel in other people's space. by making it so that the fatigue is greater
No, it makes it
on
harder.
anti-Blexes
It makes
that
it
aren't
hard
yours
to
because they're
travel
further
outside
from
of the
your
immediate
capital.
area. Like goons quote unquote space at the moment is like 4 regions.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
I highly
I'm
doubt
sorry.
that you're
Again,
gonna have
I
zero
always
fatigue in that
hold
whole
on.
area.
Let me just jump in because I always, again, like I said, I always think of Winterco space where it's split up by alliances in regions. One alliance,
I mean,
I
goons
think
are
Frat is
also
the only
split up by
alliance that has more than
but,
one region.
but like even within a region, if the region is really big and stretches really far, like light year wise, like if you take like an ANSI out plus a couple gates, like the next ANSI you take is gonna have fatigue on it.
But here's my question for you, Sven. Are there regions out there like that? And are they held by big blocks currently? And could they be taken by big blocks easily? Because like the regions that are good for this, right? The bad ones would be abandoned. The regions that are good would be taken by the big blocks.
We also don't know what metric it is based on, if it's light years from the like capital system or if it's gates. If it's gates, it's a lot more significant of a change.
Sure, yeah.
I hope it's gates personally, because I think
should be.
like the local geography should matter when you're choosing where you live. Kind of lost that with ANSIs, and getting some of that back would be nice, because it still affects everybody else that doesn't have access to the infrastructure in the area, whereas like the people that live there just don't have to deal with the like local geography at all. They only get the upsides
I
of it,
get that.
like using long range like gate jumps
And so
to like cover a lot of shit.
hopefully what we'll see on the back of a change like this is that instead of holding 4 regions, Goonswarm holds 1 region, and instead of living
Yeah, they
sucking
bring
on
their
the
allies
teeth,
in closer, so Brave live in a
lives
region
in a
next to them,
door
and
region, etc., etc.
and that frees up,
But
even if there is an
but
area
all that-
around it that is floodplains, like somebody is
but-
gonna live there, somebody's gonna rat there, or there's the ADM is
Sure.
gonna be 0.
Sure,
Right?
yeah,
They're probably
exactly.
gonna put renters in, or other secondary groups that may not have space at the moment, that are kind of like for example, lawn or whatever. And all these groups are valid targets now for harassment, right? Because before, like I said, in Omist from CTechJ, like FNIs would show up before fucking like the Rourke was out of panic. Whereas that wouldn't happen under the new system, because you can't just slam 9 ANSIs in a row.
Right. So you can't get from, 4 regions away.
Yeah.
But
It
you
basically
will still be able to get 1 region away. From the center of your
on a
space
day-to-day,
to the
it gives
fringe.
people breathing room to fight smaller groups without permanently having to worry that the largest group in the area is going to show up to fuck with your fights. Like if you bait, like, I don't know, let's say you ref a Brave ANSI and they drop a fax to rep it, and you start killing the fax and you start fighting Brave. Like, there are a lot of groups in the game that can fight Brave. There's not a lot of groups in the game that can fight Brave plus the FNI fleet that comes from goons.
Right. But do you think that they will just... Do you think that the FNI fleet will still come either way? Or
No.
they'll just skip it?
Not
You think
in
they'll
the,
skip
like,
it?
I think they'll skip it. I think, like, burning
And do you think that
fatigue
that's
for
good?
150 people,
That
yeah, that's
so-
great, because now the fight happens in the first place.
Okay.
Because at the moment, those fights very rarely happen, because goons will just show up and people don't go in the first place.
Right, but I think
Like a
what
group
you
like
want
Snuff, a
is
group like Big App
you want
can
them to
absolutely
show up, though.
dumpster. No, you want Brave to show up to defend their own space. You don't
No,
want
but you want them to
goons
show up just in lesser force or in worse doctrines. Because you want
No,
the
you
bigger
don't
that
want
fight,
depends
right?
on
You want
how
the
big you
escalations.
assume
I mean, it
any
depends. But like,
given group is.
ideally, like when I'm fighting Brave, I'm only fighting Brave.
Yeah,
Because
that
Brave
makes
is
sense.
You pick a group that is the size you want to fight, and then you fight them.
then you fight them.
Not pick a group.
All of their coalition.
Like where you don't really know who's showing up. Maybe you just have to go home empty-handed or whatnot.
Because the way that it works at the moment is you're fighting if the fight lasts longer than like a quick little skirmish, you're fighting everybody in their coalition, not just the group that you want
Oh,
to fight.
Broseiden brings up an incredible point. So why do you get to choose the engagement size, but
Because
anybody that
you're
defends
going
to
there.
even the odds
I'm
is supposed to be
going
cut
to
by
their-
gameplay mechanics? Why do
It's
you
'cause
get to
I'm-
choose the engagement size?
Brave
going
gets
to
to
their
decide their engagement size because they get to decide how big they are. He gets to decide the engagement size because he chooses the size of
I'm
group
going to
that
where
he
they
wants
live.
to fight.
If they wanted to choose like how big of a fleet that they want to fight, they just don't undock for us then.
So look, here's the thing. If I live in a really big house and you come in to rob it, I would expect that everyone in every room of my house would come to whatever room you are in to stop you from robbing my
This
house.
is a really bad analogy, by the way.
Yeah, because it could be like, oh yeah, if I work for a huge company sprawled over a massive campus, I want all 8,000 people running, despite the fact that like somebody.
So the problem with this analogy is not the analogy. The problem with the context is, so I think there's two issues. Like one, nobody has a clue how big this radius from the capital is going to be, right? You know, let's be clear. If it's like 10 light years, that's actually pretty large, right? Depending on where your staging system is. Like you can cover a lot of systems in that, right? And you're not getting fatigue. I think where this does hurt or could hurt is if you have a group like, well, let's say, well, I'm going to use Winnico, right? I'm going to pick on my lot, right? And let's say somebody is whaling something in the far end of Pure Blind, and that's NC space. Now NC should be able to deal with that locally. If they need kind of the rest of the coalition to help them, that's where they will then struggle, because everybody's got to travel over from their own kind of staging space, right? I think that's the bit that it materially makes a difference. If you're tracking where I'm going with that, because it just depends how big that range is.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. This whole thing, like every feeling that anybody has about this is entirely based on speculation at this point. A message in a Discord server and Reddit posting is what this is all based on.
No, I mean that's not entirely true, because there was a letter signed by a lot of people and they were proposing something for FC, formerly CCP, to look at. So like we're assuming that since they have given the impression that they're at least looking at that and modeling some of the changes based on what we have asked for, that the scope of what they're changing also lies within what we proposed, even if we don't know what the numbers are. Like the numbers could be 5 light years,
Yeah,
the numbers could be 10 light years, the numbers could be 8 jumps, it could be 12 jumps. Like we don't know.
The part that CCP, well, FC published, leaked, was allowed to leak. I'm not even going to get into that one. The core mechanic was the core mechanic in right. Everything else is probably still up for debate, I would imagine. All of the numbers around it, all of the nuance. Does it affect your alliance capital? How does it work based on, does your corp kind of system, like, does that make any difference? Does where your death clone is, does that make any difference? Like, there's a load of factors that are just not known right now.
Right. But I think what's important to know, though, is that even so, like, you're in terms of response fleets, sure, that this will slow them down and maybe give you more opportunity to kill things. I'm more inclined to believe that it'll give you less opportunities, because those things won't be in areas where you'll be able to kill them. They'll just be in areas where it's still safe, because that's the crab brain.
I mean, then they have less space and there's more.
But to take space, right? That is going to require timer-based warfare, which will not be hindered by fatigue. It will just be adjusted for.
I think to a certain degree, like if, like you said, all of the activity just moves closer into the core of the alliance, why would they even
the
bother in the
crabbing.
first place of defending like the like if there's nobody that literally
Because it's
nobody that lives there,
theirs.
why waste? Yeah, but why waste time defending it? Why, right? Like
Because
what
it's
benefit
theirs.
you? Why not put renters there or whatever? And then yeah, but what is it? That doesn't do anything for like goons could have all of drones if they wanted to. Why is it the nature preserve?
Because that's what they decided it was going to be. Like, that's the thing, is that it's a sandbox. So the only reason, and you're making my point for me a little bit. You know, what's the point of having the space? It doesn't do anything for you. That is exactly the problem that I think should have been fixed, or should be
Yeah, but
fixed
that's
before changing
changing the value. And I agree that it's part of the equation to make nullsec more vibrant and healthy. But like, how does that change how fast F&I fleets get around their own area, right? Or get around space, right?
Well, it doesn't. But the thing is that there are
Yeah,
some
it
things
doesn't.
that it doesn't matter
So, like-
how fast that F&I fleet's going to get there. What matters is that F&I fleet's still going to get there. And what you need is to have space that is lucrative enough to where people actually want to put in the effort, so that instead of seeing 300 goons on a Fortizar, they just
Yeah, cool story,
dock
bro.
back
I
up and
like
quit. They
those are
fight
secondary, though.
harder for it. They ping harder. They get more people into the fleet so that they actually fight against the thing. Because that's what the nullsec
Yeah, but none of that has
do.
anything to do with how fast people move around their space, and that's
Correct.
like the big issue that we're all talking about.
I understand what you're talking about. We've been talking about the same thing for an hour. I'm trying to talk about something different.
I mean, it's worth remembering, right? This is the conversation that we were having earlier, right? And the point that Kaz was making when we were having the chat about it, right? This change will not, in isolation, have the effect of rejuvenating nullsec. It won't. It can't, right? Because there is still no reason for many groups to want to take the space to start.
It'll make fucking
right?
with the groups that exist there at the moment a lot more interesting and palatable and fun.
Yeah, and as we were saying, like, this is a change that needs to, as we agreed earlier, like, this is a change that probably needs to happen, but actually to unpick a lot of the other problems with wanting to have the space and all the rest of it, there needs to be more changes made by CCP beyond this. What change they do first, who cares, right? This is the one that's come in first, fine, but there is a sequence of other changes that's needed.
Right, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with it, was because I think ultimately these arguments are from the same place, because everybody wants to have a healthy and vibrant nullsec, and everybody is
the
arguing
secondary
for that.
issues, the
It's
symptoms
just
that
a
they fix are
matter
different.
of the people having different
It's not true.
priorities. It
The
is
symptoms
true.
that they fix are different. Like the subcap projection issue doesn't change if nullsec is more valuable.
Well, we don't
Yeah,
have
there-
to
there
do
is-
just
there
one,
is-
buddy. We can't. It's
Anyway,
not like we're choosing one
I
or
did
the
have
other
a
here.
question. What do you guys think about what's it called? Like you guys think the new low-sec NPC like directives for the fac war stuff are gonna actually get people who would typically only like do high-sec stuff to try out low-sec and maybe do something?
I doubt it. I think that it'll have
Like,
the effect
there's-
of
I
getting
think-
high sec players into fighting other high sec players, and maybe some of
there's,
them
like-
might get the itch, and even less of them will scratch it.
Because there's a lot of players that, at least from my perspective, kind of care about like the lore factions, like the empires, and like a lot less about like any player. So having like, I don't know, something to transition people into like PvP would be cool. I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see how this goes.
I think that that's exactly what it is. I heard somebody, I forget who it was, use the phrase funnel, And I think that that's what it's being used as, to funnel players from high sec into low sec faction warfare space. And I think it'll be great for that. I think it'll work.
It's not that faction warfare focused, right? They have a bunch of stuff like, oh, mine this particular mineral to help the war effort. Like,
No,
you
but
don't
it's
need to go
not
to
that.
low sec for...
It's when the war effort ends, it's what more can I do for my faction? And that's what leads them into going into faction warfare, because now they can do more than mine. They learn that they can also blow up other players that are fighting for their factions. That's the funnel. Damn, no one disagreed with me? It's a miracle.
I'm busy. Clicking
You're too
buttons.
busy to
I don't
disagree with me?
strictly agree or disagree. I think that's what I said earlier, right? A lot of the stuff that seems to be pushed out of FanFest, to my mind, like a lot of it comes down to the community. The general age of the demographic of EVE is aging and eventually will burn out, and they need to deal with their onboarding problem of funneling new people into the game and handhold them through that progressive route of, you kind of come in, you're going to do some PvE, you're going to shoot some rats, now you're going to get into this kind of fac war bit where you're getting PvP and you can accept loss of ships and da-da-da-da. I think that's the funnel that they're trying to build. And I think that's a good thing because, 15, 20 years ago, you'd log into EVE and you were just in space in a ship with very little direction. So I think that's what they're doing. Now, to my mind, it meant Fanfest was a little bit thin, but I do understand why they're trying to do it.
Yeah, and I think that that's something, like I was saying earlier, that what they've announced at FanFest is cool for a group of people that I'm not a part of. And I have no problem not being a part of the group of people that gets cool changes. I just hope that I am a part of that group of people eventually. And I want to address something, because Sven, you keep saying that I don't log in, I don't play the game. Do you know why I don't log in, I don't play the game? Do you want to?
Because you're bad at it and you don't like being bad at video games? Question mark?
No, because every time I have tried to log into the video game to play the video game in recent months has turned into a 10% tie-dye shit
Because
fest.
you're in a shit group. Maybe join a
Correct.
group that does stuff that's not that.
Now, chill out, Sven.
I don't know. Like, seriously, though.
Like, as a director of Wintercore, I'm obliged to tell you to chill the fuck out.
But also, here's the
no,
thing: is that
the real answer is that,
shouldn't-
like,
if
you want a certain type of content which isn't large block fights, you can go join a group that isn't a large block. Like, you're in Winterco, right? Like, the fights that you're getting in Winterco are like on average gonna tend towards larger block fights.
Especially recently, right?
Especially recent, like there are so many options of groups that you could choose, and from what I can tell, you don't really crab in the space that you live in. So, like,
I do not.
why? Like, you don't need the nullsec crabbing space. You could go join like a more agile, like PvP focused group, like.
But here's the thing.
Mill. Go have a lot more fun because they're like in the content. Like, you could live in a space, like, you constantly talk about wanting to undock in PvP. That's what fac war is. There's
Phantomite
literally PvP on your undock.
Phantomite showed me what living in Aldernette does. I have ships there now. It was very interesting. We got content. He was like, come join this fleet for and I was in there for 5 minutes and he was like, all right, everybody undock. We're going to go kill. And we killed like 5 people. And it was 2 seconds later, we're back in the station. And not even, I don't know, it was like a minute later, we've got more people to kill. So I totally know that the content is out there. But here's the thing, is that the content that I enjoy and what brought me into this video game was the fights that were important from the nullsec groups that believed in something enough to slog through 10% tie-dye for 14 hours because it was important enough to do so. I want an empire that I can fight for,
have existed,
and I want to do it without being in 10% tie-dye. How can I get there? That's the question that I want to answer.
By joining a small nullsec group.
Going to
not
drone.
one of the blocks.
Going
Go
to
to
drone.
drones. Yeah. Go
So
to
you're
drones.
telling
Go
me
to
that
Delve.
you would rather I leave Winterco than
Yes.
try
If
to
you
make
want, if
Right,
you want the
the
Redline,
nullsec
context,
fights better.
If
what
you-
I'm telling you, Redline, as you know, a former TSM member, as a director of Frat, a director of Winnico, is every single person should be playing the game they want to play. The reality of the technological limitations of the game is that between, you know, the three big blocks, right? When we have those fights that are over something that is that important, whether that's goons trying to online the Atioth Keepstar or
it's
the
going to be a
400
shit
stuff,
show.
it's always going to be a Tydo shit show because of the technical limitations of the game.
And
If
the
you
we can
want
solve
the
that
nullsec,
problem.
if
you
you want
can't though.
if you want the nullsec experience of here is a structure that we really don't want to die and we're going to fight our hearts out to it without the tie-dye experience, then that is where you're looking at the, you know, the drones at the moment is probably the good example of that, because let's
Like
be
they're
clear,
having this similar
technological
fights.
limitation is going to be really hard for CCP to fix.
Right. So
Because
here's the thing: is that
yeah.
if nullsec space was more lucrative and it was something that was really
Yeah, but you're
really
still
worth
in the big
having.
group. So if it's
Hold
worth
on, wait
fighting
a
over
second.
in your big group,
Let me
you're gonna
finish
get
before you start talking, please. Jesus. So
talking about the same
if
thing over and over.
I was gonna say something different, but now I forgot what I was gonna say, you dumb cunt.
Good.
Ugh. Oh, I remembered. Okay. So if the nullsec space is more lucrative, so like let's talk about this. Recently Pandemic Horde died, and all of their big FCs went to Init. They went to Init because they wanted to get the same experience that they had in Pandemic Horde, maybe a little bit smaller. In a world where nullsec is even better, those FCs, myself included, would find it more beneficial to form small groups of people that enjoy flying with them to try to take nullsec space. Would you rather
Yeah, but that
have
exists
that
already in drones.
Right, but it should exist elsewhere, right? Is what I'm saying. It should also exist elsewhere.
But
It does
it
exist
does,
though, and they
but
didn't go
it's
there.
bound by tie-dye, right?
Right, but I don't think that it has to be. I don't think that it has to be bound by tie-dye.
Look,
I think
the
that
only
it can
way
instead
that we
be
get
tied
less
to player
tie-dye is
psychology.
by breaking up the blocks into smaller constituent parts.
But we can't do that. There's
You
no
can do that.
feasible way to do that.
Not easily.
Not
because,
easily.
You know.
But what
And
you
not
can do is you
quickly.
can spread things out.
Yeah, but that's what splitting up the blocks does. So the solution to what you're suggesting and the solution what I'm talking about is the same solution. Is the solution to, like, you got to figure out how to split up these groups. That's why it's so hard to get
So
what you want in
I mean,
your
you won't split up these groups.
So I think
right?
that we want different things, because you want to split up groups at the membership level. I want to split up groups on the grid, like on the fight level. I want to split up groups in a fight instead of all being in one location. They're in 6. What?
The problem there, Redline. I get what you're saying. You want multiple timers over a given area. See, a la Ozzysoft node events, but for other things.
Yes, correct.
Now I'm going to tell you where that's not going to work, right? Because it doesn't fix the tie-dye problem, because it's quite well known from the Tech 5 blog. CCP have a number of nodes, they have a number of super nodes, right? If you say, right, here is a timer-based fight over 5 different systems in the same constellation between, let's just say, Frat and Goons for a second, right? There are not enough nodes to reinforce them in a way that means the other nodes are not going to fall off the cliff.
The size of the groups are just too large for the tech stack to handle.
So
basically
let's say that this fight was in 5 different locations, and each group had 5,000 people. That's that's 5,000 people in the fight, and that is 2,000 people in each system fighting.
And you get 1% tie-dye in every single system.
Not for 2,000 people. If they're all on
Yes.
reinforced
Yeah,
nodes.
what?
Even if
Yes.
they're on regular nodes.
Even 500 people gets
No,
tie-dye,
'cause
bro.
Was that
Yeah.
Fortizar fight in low sec that you love so much on a
Absolutely.
reinforced node?
Yep. That was real dog shit tie-dye.
It
It's
wasn't
worse than
dog
low
shit
sec
tie-dye. It
because
was,
of
it was
Prime
great, but was it on a reinforced node?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
Why would we? It's
But either
master
way,
fight. Why would we not?
you split up the group
Yeah,
into these
even
different
split up,
systems.
unless
and
it's like you
you're
splitting it up
absolutely correct.
like into 100 different.
There would still be tie-dye, but what I'm saying is that it would be less tie-dye. It would be the same amount of tie-dye, but for less amount of time. So rather than setting in tie-dye in one spot for 14 hours, you are maybe setting in tie-dye in 5 different spots
Look,
as
Redline,
a unit
what you want
for an
from
hour
the
and a
game
half to 2 hours apiece.
in the medium to long term is just not really feasible in the group that you're in. So why are you still in the group that you're in?
Well, according to you, I don't play, so it doesn't really matter what group
Well,
I'm in,
according to
does it?
you, you do play, and you want meaningful conflict, which happens in many places, and you want no tie-dye. The Reddit is probably one of the like least conducive groups to be in for that.
I mean, today, but when we lived in Geminate, it was pretty cool. Lots of small scale
You
stuff.
live in Geminate right now, bro.
No, we live in Tribute.
I guess you got evicted.
Test moved. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I
even
guess I
in-
wouldn't know
in-
that though because I don't play the game. So never mind.
Yeah, okay, buddy. No, like,
See, I'm just
skill
fucking
issue.
with you now. It is a
Just
skill issue.
go
No,
to
you're
a
absolutely
different
right.
group. Join a different group.
I've got better
Like-
ideas.
Yeah, but none of your ideas are gonna actually. I don't know. Like talking about this is kind of pointless.
It's true.
Just
No,
go join a better group.
Well,
I
not
think
better
Monaco's
group.
a pretty good.
Different group. Sven.
Well, no, like for his requirements, there are better groups, or for his
I-
like
I wouldn't call them requirements because, like, I don't think that
his
you get it.
desires, his
I
goals,
don't
the,
want.
the things he wants to do, and it's like
I
he's
don't
like
want no
describing.
tie-dye. I want the tie-dye to be worth it. Is the thing. I want the tie-dye to be worth it, and I want the people to be spread out more
But the
throughout a
spreading out
constellation.
doesn't matter necessarily towards like.
It's a way to break up the blocks without breaking them up via membership, which seems so sour. Like to talk about like we want you to leave your block. Like what if I have a bunch of friends in my block? Like I don't want to leave all my
Yeah, but
friends
you have-
and they don't want to
you-
come with me.
Humans don't have the ability to like create meaningful relationships with anywhere near the number of people in these alliances.
That doesn't
Like
all
there
it
are
takes is a
thousands
few.
and thousands and thousands and thousands of faceless people that you have never interacted with, and that could quit the game tomorrow and you would never know, right?
That
Like
sounds like the cesspool.
like you're not you want your like you want meaningful fights for your corp. You don't, or in your friend group, right? Like that you care about. That doesn't need to be in this massive group. You can get that like in many different groups. Like
That is
go leave with your like go start
Yeah.
a corp with your friends and anchor a pos somewhere. Like I'm sure the anchoring timer is going to be meaningful to you. Like
That
put
is
some
one of
skin in
those
the game.
weird areas where leadership screws you up. Because, so I have my corp, right? I have my meaningful, but you're right, Sven, right? Like I have my meaningful friendships with my corp. And then I have my, as an executive, my other meaningful friendship is with Norris, which is the thing that ties me to Frat, but that's a different.
Yeah, no, and I get that with the leadership part. That's a different part where like you feel a strong connection to the group as a whole and the culture and identity of that group. That's a different thing. But like Redline's a line member. Redline doesn't like
Well, that's not.
he's
strictly
not
true.
leading test.
Oh no, yeah,
When was
I'm
the last
not
time you
leading
FC'd?
test. Oh, it's been a minute, but that's not to say that I'm not still an FC. Like I could log in FC a fleet today, right
Yeah,
now,
you could, but you
and it would be
aren't.
fine.
and you don't.
No, you're right. I'm not. But that doesn't mean
So,
that
like,
I'm. That's
I
just
said
like
go.
just if
I
someone
don't like.
serves in the military,
I
they're still a
genuinely
service
think
member,
you
bro.
would have more fun in a different group than the
I
one
think
you
that
are
I would have
currently in.
more fun building constant fighting, like 50v50 T1 cruisers. Just making that a thing that happens all the time. That would be what I have the most fun doing these days, I think. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that happen. How about that? Does that work?
One sec.
There are people who have done that in null blocks who just have like a cult of personality FC style where they get together, they ping, they get about 50 people, they go to a place and say like, hey, we're in 50 Tech 1 cruisers, you don't need to drop supers on us, just fight us with something roughly equal.
I will reply to something in chat quickly from Remaker. One of the things we were talking about earlier, actually, with the projection stuff, is one of the other things that realistically needs to be fixed if they're going to push the projection stuff is, you're correct, Equinox Sov is kind of a bit stupid and it kind of forces sprawl. So if and the kind of wide building rather than the tall building, because the power limitations and workforce limitations, so on and so forth. If CCP is serious at pushing the projection change as a mechanism for contracting the space that groups own, and if CCP understands psychology, which is that groups are not going to just split up because they're friendship groups, they need to adjust how Equinox works to allow groups to grow taller in smaller areas of space. Now, whether they fix that, we'll see. Fortunately, I have no information on that anymore at all, as I am liberated from CSM and don't plan to run any time in the near future again. But that is a change they will need to make.
And just in case you were talking about what I was talking about just like on the battlefield. So like if you're in a fight, there I have this pie in the sky idea that I want to attach keep stars to like a node style gameplay to kill them. That's like my pie in the sky idea, to split up people fighting. Creating more fights will create more tedium without it feeling like tedium. People will be exhausted from logging in too much instead of prohibited from feeling like they can log in at all because they can't get where they need to go. I don't know.
Did we just lose Sven?
We did, yes. But we are going to lose everybody here in a second or a minute.
Yeah, it's 1:15 UK time, so.
Yep, 8:15 for me. I am hungry, and also I need to get up and go touch some grass. So I'm gonna go do that. We're gonna do some double final thoughts, or should I just send a raid off? I'll just.
I mean, my final thoughts are no real different to what they were before, right? Which is, do I like fatigue? No. Was I one of the original designers of some of this concept in CSM 17, 18, and 19? Yes. But as we said earlier, there's a bandage that needed ripping off somewhere just to prove that fatigue isn't the fucking problem. However, at least it's not the low sector extreme as, wet dream view of like, you take a jump bridge, you get fatigue, right? So hopefully the local bubble, let's call it, of no fatigue is significant enough that actually you look at it and go, well, I can go do my ratting, I can go do all my PI locally and all the rest of it, that's fine, it's not going to be an issue. But if I live in Vale and my PI is in Branch, that's probably going to give me fatigue because, I'm living somewhere miles away from where I'm doing anything.
Right. There's a copy-pasted, like, comment that the snuffed out guys keep posting that's like this guy that does all of this different stuff in different regions of space for some reason. That's silly. Just do it all in one spot. Build tall, not wide. All right. Well, I'm going to send a raid over to Bill Jackson. I appreciate everyone for watching, especially if you've been here the whole time. It's been like 3 hours. I don't know how often we'll do the After Dark portion of the Untethered show. But this one was kind of a big a big one, so needed the extra time. But we're gonna go see Bill Jackson now. Looks like he's doing a fleet or something. He's looking at a battle report. I don't know. Hopefully it's interesting. We'll find out in a minute once I send you there. So enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you maybe hopefully next week.